everybody's getting very creative with their backgrounds. So we had a title call yesterday, and Joanne had a beach theme in the back. So please don't forget to chat in your questions, right? And we'll get to them. So we have a lot going on today. We're going to try to pack a lot into about 40, 45 minutes. So Ed and I are going to bring you through some forecasting. We've got some forecasting models for the economy that we're going to go through. And then Lorraine and Angela have got some really cool marketing to go over with you. And then Ed is going to moderate an agent panel of some of our agents, some of your peers who are making all these things work in this environment. So what I want to start out with, first of all, is going through a chart. And before Lorraine puts it up, I want to kind of give you some background on this. So we're starting to see economic models now that are coming through the various Federal Reserve investment banks and things like that. Now, to keep everything in perspective, okay, the states, the governors have put out, stay-at-home orders, right? Like New Hampshire is May 4th. Now, we don't know what actually, on May 4th, the only thing that expires is the stay-at-home order. So it's likely that other parts of like social distancing and all those types of things will continue beyond May 4th. As a matter of fact, there's no guarantee that May 4th actually will be the date where the stay-at-home orders get lifted. So I want to just make sure that we kind of understand that some of the things that we're dealing with now, we're going to continue to deal with beyond these dates. In other words, this is a process, not an event. So, so for us to get from where we are today, all right, into calmer waters is going to be a process. And so I want to kind of caution everybody that it would be great if May 4th, everything gets lifted. If it doesn't, don't be surprised, don't be disappointed. Kind of the guidance I'm giving everybody is certainly all of April. We already know what that looks like. And I would be prepared for May, for some stay-at-home order or for some maybe order that is modified in some way where there's still social distancing. We're still doing all the things that we're doing now for protocols for practicing, okay? So I just want to give you that kind of caveat. We're still very bullish on everything we're doing. We've got a great marketing tools for you guys that we're going to roll out. I don't believe, and just to be straight about it, I don't believe this is one of these things that you can just wait out. Because what's going to be happening is that we're going to go through this health crisis, right, which is what we're having now. Then we're going to have the economic impact, and then we're going to have a recovery. And Lorraine, if you could just tee up the graphic for me. So this has been put out as a compilation of the estimates from Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and Morgan Stanley. So, by any measure, all very highly high expertise at what they do. And so what this is showing is that if you look at that red line, okay, the red line is GDP, gross domestic product, all the goods and services that we make and sell. And that's kind of the measure of how the economy is. Generally, in the last 10 years or so, we've been doing about a 2 to 3% GDP of GDP growth. What this is showing is basically below the red line is all negative growth, which means the economy is struggling, right? Which we already know this because of the layoffs. Lorraine, can you go to the next graph, please? So what we've kind of done is we've kind of been able to put this into a timeline for you, right? So you can kind of get some gauge of where we are in the process, right? Because this is a process. So right now, March, April, May, the kind of reddish, pinkish dot, that's kind of where we are now. We're in the middle of this crisis. We're going to get through April, probably got to get through the better part of May. Then we'll enter the next part of the process, which is the economic impact. And the economic impact is basically the layoffs and the shuttering of a lot of businesses. A lot of businesses, you guys know, have just shut down. Detroit's not making cars right now. There are a lot of businesses that are just not productive, and they won't be until they either get reclassified as essential or a lot of the work orders, a lot of the stay-at-home orders are lifted. So again, I just want everyone to kind of understand that what we're going through is going to be a process. So we'll know the full impact of what a full economic impact will probably be more like a June or July or August timeframe. We'll really understand the depth of the economic impact. And then, as you can see in this chart, we'll be moving back into economic growth sometime in the third, fourth quarter as businesses start to re-engage. And that's what this is about. This is about businesses re-engaging and, rehiring, production starting again, construction sites, factories, all those types of things. And so this is going to be, as I keep saying, this is going to be a process. The May 4th dates that are out there, like in New Hampshire, it's just an estimate. And so I wouldn't be surprised if some part, if not all of it, gets extended. Hopefully not, but please don't be surprised by that. And so everything that we're doing, and Ed will talk about this in a second, everything we're doing right now is about positioning us, all of us, right, to go through this process. So they call this a V-shaped recession. It's short and it's sharp. And so as you can see from the way that the three different investment banks have analyzed this, they're all generally about the same. And you see the same thing coming out of the Federal Reserve, and you're starting to see the same things come out of NAR and other organizations. So, that's the process that we're looking at. And so everything that we're doing, and a lot of what you're going to see today, is really about how do we collectively move through this process in a successful way. Because I don't believe, as I said, I don't believe you can just wait this out. Because if you're going to try to wait this whole thing out, you're really going to be waiting it out from now until November or something like that. And that for many people just can be devastating for their careers. So everything we're doing is about how we move ourselves through it. Ed, like to add to that?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I think that when you look at this graph and you start to see what's happening as we go from the bottom all the way up and we start to recover, a lot of that recovery is going to be about what we do in the real estate industry. When you think about the economic impact of a house being sold, and people moving in and just everything from paint to repairs on the house to carpet and on and on and on. The impact that we have in the real estate industry on the economy is really huge, and it becomes a special calling for us because what we're seeing right now, and Chris has said this a couple of times, people want to transact business right now. So I was on a call yesterday, and they were talking about some markets in the country are off between 25 and 75% on written sales. And yet we look at our numbers and our written business is continuing to be strong even in this market, which tells us that the fundamental conditions are really good and people want to buy and sell. What's happening though all across the board is we're starting to see listings come off because lots of sellers are probably taking that approach, well, I'm going to wait it out. And so we need to be engaged with people in a way that the listing inventory continues to come on, and then we can continue to guide people through this recovery, because a lot of the recovery is going to be dependent on what we do. When you think about it, as realtors, we're really people-focused problem solvers. And right now, our people certainly do have some problems that they need to overcome. But we have the skills, the experience, and really the industry wisdom to help guide these families. Chris and I were talking some weeks ago, and I was saying that if I were king, I would rename our industry. We're not in the real estate business; we're in the family shelter business, and that's such an important aspect of what we do for families and for the economy. It's so important that the governors of New Hampshire and Maine and Massachusetts have all carved us out as an essential business. Think about what that means. Each one of you have been empowered by the governors of your states to transact the real estate business. not because it's a business that's good for us, but because it's good for the families of all the states that we're involved in. So well, I think we're all fortunate to be part of a company that really has the personal commitment of Chris and everyone at the home office and in your offices. You know, a commitment to give you the tools and the skills and the systems that you need to be able to be that essential element in the lives of the families that you know.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Ed. Yeah, it's really, it's a social compact we have, right? To make sure that, you know, in normal times, we don't think a lot of it. We just do what we think is right. And you guys are all very good at it. And I think at times like this, the social compact we have with the communities we serve and all that takes on greater importance. So, you know, again, this is about being prepared and understanding the process we're going to go through. Now, this charts that we looked at, probably going to change a little bit as we get more economic data, but this is the first signs of economic data that we're getting about forecasting what this is going to look like. And it's looking like, at least for the time being, it's looking like, you know, a V-shaped type recession. I don't think there's any doubt we'll hit some type of recession. Every part of the country will be affected differently. Not exactly sure how we'll be affected. The full weight of the layoffs really hasn't been felt yet. So we still have, you know, that to go through. As Ed said, though, the good news is that still people want to transact and the conditions are still very good. People will get rehired. So those, you know, what's going to end up happening is that the recovery will move at the speed in which business re-engages. So just think of gears, right? This is about putting some oil on some rusty gears and kicking them into motion. And so the economy will re-engage. People at some level will be rehired. And how we come out of it will simply just be on how fast the business community gears back up again. So, and our plans are simply around making sure that we've got the right tools, you have the right tools for however long we need to have them for. Not a week, not a month, not May 4th, right? However long we need to have them for, you've got the tools to make sure that you can succeed and meet the needs of your customers and clients. That's what we're focused on. So with that, Lorraine and Angela.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, just jotted down a few notes as you were talking about being in the position that we're in and the ability that we have to react to what's happening kind of on a, I would love to say day-to-day basis, but it's really like minute-to-minute, hour-by-hour basis, and provide those tools and create the communication that allow you to go out and have and communicate with the needs of your clients. But we're also looking at this from a multifaceted approach. So not only giving you the tools that you need, but also reaching the consumer directly to for that direct communication so that they have that knowledge. We want to be the experts that are providing them with the you know, the information that they need. So we have some new TV commercials that are coming out very soon. We're putting new information on our website all the time. Our web traffic is up significantly over the last several weeks, so we know we have eyes on. We've just released the ability for you to copy any pages we have on our company site, copy them down to your website, so that kind of compounds the information that's getting out, and again, pitches you all as the experts in your area and markets. We do have some new tools that are coming out. We want to help our sellers along in the process wherever they may be. If they're ready to sell right now, we'll explain to them the safety procedures and protocols that we have in place that will allow for buyers, only the most serious of buyers, to enter their home. And here's what will happen when we do enter. We're taking everything into consideration. And all of that all the way down through closing, and you know that we have all those procedures in place. But if they're not quite ready or they're a little hesitant given the state of things right now, we want to let them know that there's things that they can be doing to get their home ready so that they can really hit it hard when they are comfortable and when they do feel it's the appropriate time. So that might mean home repairs, it might mean freshening up, or just even decluttering. So we have those tips that you can be sharing out with your clients. Staying front of mind so that they're hearing from you as part of your outreach program. So watch for some new things that we'll be launching either tomorrow or definitely by first of next week. Angela, did you want to speak to any of that as well?
Yeah, I was just going to talk about Strong a little bit. Thank you, Lorraine. You guys are really going to like Ready, Set, Sold. It's pretty cool. So we've got some new tasks that you're going to get this week for Strong. And so I don't know how many of you are showing the kids page on your website, but a great thing. We're going to have you make some calls this week to some of your clients, customers, some people in your sphere that have children. And then you can follow up with a link to the kids page, some great activities for those people who are homeschooling right now, right? I'm sure they're looking for anything they can get their hands on to help with that. So a nice resource you're going to be able to have along with some other things we've got for you. So look for that. That's going to come right out. Again, you can find a lot of these resources on the Pump Up the Volume page. We've turned that on to Strong for the duration of this. So you guys are doing great. We're all here to support you and thank you for everything that you're doing. And I will see you on Facebook.
Okay. Ed?
Well, thank you, Chris. I'm super excited to have gotten permission to bring 3 agents on to talk a little bit about their experiences recently dealing with some sellers. And let me just say that I've got Diane Jessette from Concord, Lynn Monk from Nashua, and Sarah Allery, I almost did it, Sarah, from Augusta. And I really could have picked almost any 3 of you on this call at random because you were all dealing with the same kinds of things and you're all dealing with them really well. But there are so many just unique situations out there to talk about. And I hope you enjoy the conversation we're about to have. So Diane Jessette, are you able to unmute yourself?
I am. I'm here.
How you doing, Diane?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. So Diane, like the other 2 ladies on this call, you've had some recent experience with sellers, and I'm just curious if you could give us some insight into some recent seller mindsets and situations that you've dealt with in your practice in Concord.
Yes, I actually had 3 listings that were coming on right as this whole COVID crisis was ramping up. So everyone, got worried about what does this mean for me? And I think all of them had concerns around buyers' financial stability. We find a buyer, are they going to have their job 3 weeks down the road? And also just the safety factor of people coming into their homes. What does that look like? How are we going to address this? So really had to talk through pre-approving, talking to the other agents about job security for their buyers, talk about the guidelines for showing their property. And I found with a lot of agents, they just weren't prepared to have me set requirements for showings. I mean, pretty strict requirements for showings. You can't bring your mother-in-law and your neighbors in to see. So it took us some time. We did have one casualty. We had one couple that backed away from a property after going under contract. It was a second home purchase and they just were not comfortable. But all of these people, we moved through it all really well. We set expectations for ourselves and them, and all of them had multiple showings, multiple offers, and did go under contract. So they, huge relief. We got through that process. We still have a ways to go. But I think it was about letting them know that we were prepared for anything that came our way, but we were also prepared to shift as things shifted and needs shifted as we went forward.
Now, I think you told me that, I think it was you, that these sellers came on either at the beginning or right before this global pandemic happened.
Yes.
And so what was that like, talking to them as it sort of evolved while they're on the market? Like, what kind of concerns did they have and what did they bring to you?
Well, initially it was, I'm going to put my house on the market. You're going to do an open house on a Saturday. I'm going to have all these great people through and then we'll go under contract. And as soon as they hit the market, everything kind of changed. So we had to shift gears and do assisted showings an hour apart, wipe down in between. And they had to be part of that whole process. They had to understand what we were doing, why we were doing it, and that in the end, we'd still get the result we wanted. It was just going to have to come about in a little bit of a different way. So honestly, I have awesome sellers. They were very proactive. They understood what was happening. and we collaborated through it, and great result. All three are under contract now.
That's great.
Yep.
And they were fortunate to have you to guide them through that. Some great stories, and we'll come back to you in a second, but I'd like to go to Lynn Monk now. Lynn is in the Nashua, New Hampshire office, and Lynn, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
So what do you have to add to this? Some of your experiences with your recent sellers?
So some experience with my recent sellers. I really feel like both buyers and sellers look to us to kind of set the tone for the anxiety level for selling their home or buying a home. So I think it's important to have a plan in place on how to do that, how to have showings. I've been fortunate enough to, a few of my listings are vacant properties, so those sellers have been fine. I do have one where my seller is ready to go and get on the market, but she wants some painting to be done prior to, and we can't get a painter. We're having trouble having a painter who wants to come and spend all day in her house. So for her, we just made a plan to, go on the market a couple weeks later once we can find the painter. And I've been reaching out to some contractors that Brad and I know to get her help to get someone in there, which has been nice.
Yeah, so you brought up a similar theme that Diane did, and one of them is showing instructions. Like we've all dealt with showing instructions, right? Make sure the back door is locked, don't let the dog out, that sort of thing. And having showing instructions now that are more specific to the situation is an important part of the expectation that we set on the buy side for other agents coming in. And we can talk about that in a minute. The other thing is, and you just brought it up, but Diane's clients also benefited from it, and that's that calm leadership. I always talk about when someone's in a horrific accident and they go to the emergency room at a hospital, nobody in the hospital is freaking out, right? They know what to do, they know how to fix, and they keep moving, because the last thing you want is to go in with a splinter in your finger and have the people going, oh my God, that's the worst splinter I've ever seen, right? So that calm leadership, your clients will key off of you, and I thank you for bringing that up. Sarah in Augusta, how are you?
Hello, I'm very well. How are you all?
Well, we are keeping on. So tell us a little bit about your seller experiences recently, please.
Well, we have been very lucky, I feel, kind of at the spectrum of experiences. We've had folks that are already under contract that, everything's pretty much had already been done, kind of cruising in. They were already, they had vacated the home. So that went pretty easily. And then, we've had situations where the sellers are more high risk, and, we've talked about their concerns. Ultimately they want to sell, but, they've perhaps been stockpiling food and supplies for friends and family members. And, that's kind of created a big mess in their home, and then just being fearful. And so I've had a lot of those moments where we're talking with the property owner and troubleshooting, what are your fears, and not trying to put my fears on them, keeping that very separate, and then just trying to problem solve our way out of it. And ultimately, with the folks that I'm kind of talking about in mind with this story, they did decide to temporarily withdraw, but we're gonna touch back periodically every couple of weeks, and just make sure that whatever we're doing is still working for them, and we'll just update our plan as we move along.
I think one of the coolest things about the real estate business is the solving of puzzles and problems, and sometimes the solution, the best thing for the client is maybe it is to take it off the market for now, right, when you have that kind of situation, but to be able to lead them to that and show them a pathway for how they can get from where they are to where they want to be ultimately. That's such an important piece of what we do in this industry for people. Now you live in a little bit of a different world, because for those of you who don't know, in the state of Maine, there are some very specific guidelines about how properties are shown and exposed to buyers and that sort of thing. So it's a lot more restrictive. and a lot more virtual stuff going on. But could you speak to showing instructions? Like what kind of showing instructions are you putting out there now that didn't exist before?
Definitely. So I really think education on the part of not only our clients, you know, buyer, seller, but then also our expectations of the other agents. And so, you know, it's important that we not only have in our listings as far as showing instructions, you know, in the kind of the disclaimer message that we're seeing so frequently that's protecting us and saying, hey, if you have symptoms, please don't be scheduling showings. And, you know, then following it up with the confirmation email saying, okay, so this is how we're going to be doing things. You know, wear your gloves, wear your booties, providing sanitizing products or gloves, but ultimately just kind of listening and making sure that you're communicating and constantly evolving, and just letting everyone know as well that it could change at a moment's notice. And we just have to try and be flexible and patient with one another.
Thank you. Before I go to Lynn, let me just remind everybody, as you see in the chats, this is an opportunity to ask questions or make comments if you want. Lynn, showing instructions, what kinds of things are you seeing? Are you doing?
Similar things to Sarah, you know, only one in at a time, being there when their showings are to make sure they're following the rules, but also setting the expectations with the seller on things that they can do, leaving pantry doors and closet doors open so that they don't have to touch things, even cabinet doors, and then wiping things down after. I know some of my listings that still have, you know, people living in them. I've brought them Lysol wipes when we go on the market so that they're prepared to wipe everything down after showings, things like that.
Nice. And Diane, we were talking earlier about some of the sort of different ideas that maybe some buyer agents or buyers have going through your listings, and you had an interesting experience recently.
I had an agent show up with a couple and their 8 children in the van, and I have, for several weeks, I've been sending out a notice about showing requirements. Here's how we're going to do this, and I had sent it out, and they showed up, and this family really wanted their 8 kids to have an opportunity to see the house, and I had to just basically say no. We understand that, but only pertinent decision makers can come in the property. Children are going to touch everything. It looked like they had, you know, an 8-month-old up to a 12-year-old, and I was envisioning this, spending the rest of my life cleaning this house. So I did have to be a little firm, but in the end, it wasn't the house for them. So I'm glad we didn't let them all in, but they showed up expecting their 8 kids would get a good look at the place.
And we're hearing a lot of that right now, and there's a lot of people that just aren't, you know, getting the guidance that they need to do the things that they need to do to protect themselves and the clients and our clients and that sort of thing. You know, one of the things that we ought to keep in mind is that I am sure that for the next 100 years, people are going to be studying this event, and that some of the things that we're doing now that we weren't doing 3-4 weeks ago are going to become the normal way we practice the real estate business. And it's going to be super interesting to watch that stuff. And we were talking at home office about putting out a poll at some point in coming weeks, just to get an idea from all of you what you're seeing that you think ought to maintain itself after this event. Because one of the things about waiting out this event is that there's sort of a feeling that maybe when we get to the other side of it, it's going to be the way it was 3-4 weeks ago. And that's not the case. Things are going to be a lot different. And there's going to be a lot of different expectations on the part of the sellers and our buyer clients on how these things happen. So it's going to be a very interesting time. And so any last thoughts, Diane, on what you're seeing or feeling, or any interesting stories that you're living right now?
It's day by day. You know, I'm fortunate to work with really great buyers and sellers right now, so I don't have any nightmares. Like you said, we just have to be the calm right now, because there's not a whole lot of that going on out there.
Thank you. Lynn?
I would agree. Being the calm, setting the tone, coming to them with with facts and data.
Very good, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like we've touched on so many wonderful aspects of how we're all changing right now. And, you know, really, I think it's just being, you know, malleable to all of the different things that we need to learn, whether it's technology and trying to remain calm and, you know, translating that to our clients, mediating, problem solving, and then ultimately selling properties and staying safe and healthy. And just feel like we've had some really amazing tools to help us with this process. And, you know, it's making us even better educators and able to do our job really well.
Well, thank you very much, ladies. You are doing great work, as are everyone else on this call. And we have a special obligation to people. It's not just a legal one, but we also have, you know, really a personal obligation to help these families with their shelter as we go through this situation and beyond. So thank you for sharing your experiences with us. Chris, any thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, panelists. Really appreciate that. It's good to hear the, you know, the real life stories, right, that everyone's going through. Diane, that's amazing that they showed up with so many people, right? It's like a moving petri dish, right? So yeah, it's going to be really, you know, you guys know me pretty well. I mean, I'm an observer. I love to observe things in motion. And this is going to be really fascinating to see how much of what we're doing now actually sticks, because I think some things will stick, right? You think about, you know, virtual open houses, you know, having people really go on and you know, look at a virtual tour before they go look at the houses, you know, not showing as many. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to stick, and even some things that we haven't even sorted out yet. And we're going to go through this process where, as we start to get out of this first phase, and Sandy asked me a really good question. So that chart that I showed you came out of an article that we're going to send you from a website called Keeping Current Matters. And we've also prepared talking points for you. Okay, so that's not our opinion. We're constantly doing research on where we see things going, so we can give you advice, so you can kind of adjust, right, your thinking and kind of the arc of this event. And it'll be super fascinating to see. Some of this stuff will stick with us. I mean, I had this great quote. Other than the fact that it came from Vladimir Lenin, it's a really good quote. It says, you have decades where nothing happens, and then you have weeks when decades happen. And that's what we just went through. We just went through weeks where decades happen. I mean, you're going to see e-signature, everything. You know, I mean, all these, you know, a lot of the governmental entities, you know, who are 10, 12, 15 years behind the times, they've had to like catch up like overnight. So I think it's really a really fascinating time. You know, you have to deal with the knowns. So there's two knowns, right? We know we're in it, and we know we're going to get out of it. And everything in between that, who knows, right? But we know we're in it, and we know we're going to get out of it. And it's about making sure that we're prepared. You know, you hope for the best, but you prepare for the worst. You have to. You know, there's things like Zoom listing presentations. And like we know that's going to be we know that's a thing, and we're preparing for it now. So like I said, there'll be a lot of things that'll come out of this. And as this whole phase starts to burn off, as we start to get into May and into June, and the orders either get lifted or modified, we're still going to have sellers that are going to want these protocols until they're fully comfortable, right? Where it's, you know, hey, the family of 10 can come look at the house. But it's going to be a while before people really feel that way. That's the reason why I think some of these protocols are going to hang around for a while. And we'll have people that will be in various levels of comfort. So as we get into the later phases of this, right, as we get into summer, then and the orders get lifted, we're going to have to ask, well, what's your comfort level? That'll be a whole nother level of interaction with people that we'll have to get into. Right now, we have to do it. And as we go into different phases, then it'll be a matter of making sure that people are comfortable and asking them, you know, what their comfort levels are. So we're already anticipating what the future phases of this are going to be, and then building resources into them. So let me just check the chat here real quick before we go.
While you're doing that, can you imagine, it's going to be something like you're showing listings on the computer to buyer clients, and they're going to be like, well, where's the video tour on this one? And it doesn't have a video tour?
Right. It's like snow pictures, right?
Well, right. Nice pictures, but where's the video walkthrough? Or imagine right now if you handed a pen to a client to sign a piece of paper right now.
Right. That'd be horrifying.
Raya. I'm signing what? Papers? No.
Yeah, I remember years ago when, not as much anymore, but it used to be, you look at a real estate sign, and a real estate sign actually had in generational layers about how people would how they could communicate. So you had a phone number, you had a QR code, you had a website, you had all these different ways of communicating, right? And this is going to be kind of the same thing. All of a sudden, people are going to have various levels of how they want their house shown and about protocols and all that. So it'll just be something that we'll just get used to, and we'll make sure we have all the right resources for you. So whatever you guys have for questions or whatever you need, please make sure you get them to us. We are working on all this stuff on your behalf literally every day. You guys have heard me say this. We have a meeting at 10 and we have a meeting at 4 every day. The only way you would know it was the same day at the 4 o'clock meeting than it was the 10 o'clock meeting is you have the same clothes on. That's about it. There's like nothing in common with the morning and the afternoon. So you guys are really doing inspiring, amazing work right now. And I couldn't be more proud to be with such a fine group of people in a challenging time like this. So please make sure you give yourselves a pat on the back for a job well done. You're all amazing. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you all.